I completed my undergrad in June 2009. So this year in June, I'm celebrating the 15th year anniversary of me being in tech career. So I was thinking that if I could somehow go back in time and speak with my 22-year self who just graduated from a university with a BS degree in Lahore, Pakistan, what advice would I give to that person? The first thing I would communicate to that 22-year-old self is that money is very important in life. I know for a lot of people this point is very obvious, but it was not super obvious to me. So I really would want to emphasize that point to my 22-year-old self, that money is important and I should try to do whatever I can to increase my earning capacity. The earning capacity, as I see it, is a function of three things. First is your skill set, second is your location, and the third one is leverage. And it should go in this order. First, you should try to acquire skill set. Then you should try to move to a location which gives you good amount of money for that skill set. And third, once you have a good skill set and you are in a good location, then you should try to leverage. And this is a little more complicated, so I'll just leave it out for the purpose of this video. So the advice I would give to my 22-year-old self is that I should try to really first hone in some very practical skills so that I could acquire a good job. Now, one can assume that since I have completed a BS degree from a good enough university, I already have a skill set, but that's not really a case, because in universities, usually you are taught a lot of courses like even English, mathematics, calculus, all that, linear algebra. All of that is not super relevant finding a good job. So the advice I would give is that figure out what is the one good job you want to take, for example, Java developer or front end or data science or whatever, and then really try to develop my skill set and expertise around that thing. Once I have developed my expertise so that I can start cracking some interviews and get my first job, I should try to move to a location which pays a good amount for that skill set. For example, I was in Lahore when I graduated. Though Lahore is still a decent small tech market, but of course as you move to the bigger markets, for example Middle East or US, then the kind of money you make for the same skill set, it just changes a lot. And I think one of the best career moves I made personally was moving to Silicon Valley in the USA. Though it was more of a luck than like my figuring out things, it is not something which is in my control totally or in anyone's control to be able to go there, especially if you need visa and all that. But figure out what is the best job market you can get to. It could be Middle East, it could be UK, Europe, anywhere. But of course, when we speak about tech industry, Silicon Valley in the US especially is like the mecca. So if you could get there, that's like the best thing. But if you cannot get there, that should not stop you from moving to the next biggest market. So focus on your skill set and your market, and you should be in a good shape from earning capacity. The second advice I would give to my 22-year-old self would be that try to get into some FANG companies. Though FANG just constitute of like 5-6 companies, but there are other FANG-like companies. For example, I think Microsoft is not part of the FANG, but it is still like almost there. So try to figure out how you could get into the top tier tech companies. And it looks very daunting and difficult, and people will say that it's impossible for you. But if you look closely, it actually isn't that difficult. I mean, of course it is difficult, but it's not impossible. The interview structure, especially for like L3, L4, is that you just have to have a good solid command over some algorithm and data structure questions. And these questions are difficult. That's why the acceptance rate or qualifying rate for these interviews is pretty low, but it is still not an impossible task. So the advice I would give to myself, my 22-year or 23-year-old self, once I've landed my first job, I would definitely not say that you should get your first job in a FANG, but try to get your first job somewhere. Try to get to a good market, but then try to focus how you can get into FANG in the next 1 to 2 years. And I think the advice I would give to my younger self would be that right now you have the luxury of time, because later on when you have family and other commitments, you cannot dedicate a lot of time towards studies, and you have that luxury of time, and you actually don't have to focus much on anything else besides your career. Then you should really use that time intelligently. And the way you get into FANG is through these lead code data structure algorithm questions. I believe if I were like really dedicated at that time, I could do 1,000 lead code questions in a year. That is approximately 3 questions a day. I think anyone could do it if they have like 2 to 3 hours available every day consistently. And when you look at people who have done like 1000 lead code questions, there are not a lot of people who have done it. There are like very few people, very few people who have completed 1000 lead code questions, even when you look at people who are working currently in FANG companies. So if you could really like focus on lead code questions, data structure algorithm questions from lead code or wherever, and if you could do 1000 of them, then you actually become very unstoppable. So then your chances of landing a job into FANG are much higher. This is advice I would give to my younger self, that try to get into a FANG companies, and there are many benefits to it. There are some people who would say, no, it's not worth it, but I still think it is like very worth it. You get the best money when you're working in FANG companies. You also get a chance to spend time with a lot of very smart people, because these FANG companies have acquired a very talented set of pool of people. So you get a chance to work with those. That's the second benefit. The third is that you get some very good credentials on your resume. And I can tell you from my personal experience that I've worked without these big names on my resume, and I've worked with these big names on my resume. And with everything else equal, the life is just so much easier once you have these big names on your resume. People just start treating you differently. I mean, I've been through a lot of interview experiences where the person who is sitting on the other side of the table is actually reluctant to ask me some technical questions because he thinks that I'm coming from these big companies. So of course, my technical knowledge would be much higher than him, which actually isn't the case. So try to get these big names on your resume. That'll give you a lot of dividend throughout your career, and it gives you good money and also good experiences since you're working with very smart people. And it is also not impossible to get it if you know how to prepare. So this is the second advice I would give to my younger self. Try to get into a FANG company as soon as possible. The third advice I would give to my younger self is that once I am in a good enough company, in a good enough position, that success in a tech career is not just dependent on your expertise in technical skill set. And I think a lot of technical people make this mistake that since we are engineers, we are supposed to be nerds who know how to do coding and all, that we do not spend a lot of time developing the other soft skills like communication, presentation skills, project management skills, people management skills, understanding the business context. We just try to zoom into the coding world and all that without giving much importance to these softer skills, and that hinders our ability to vertically progress in a company. So the advice I would give to my younger self would be that from early on, once I am in a decent enough company and all that, I should try to develop these expertise as well, because these softer skills will help me climb the ladder much faster without just relying on the technical skills. Now, one thing I really want to highlight here is that if making comparison between staying hands on your technical skills versus developing these softer skills, one should prioritize the technical skills, because these technical skills, for example, the 1000 lead code questions, that will help you get another job, and that ability to land another job is much more important than excelling at one job, which leads me to the next advice, which is don't try to be loyal to one company forever. That will decrease your ability to earn, and that will also decrease the kind of exposure you can get. I think a sweet spot to stay in one company should be between 3 years to 5 years. This is good enough period that you actually learn and internalize the working of a company. You develop some good relationship for you to be able to move on to another company. And also, it's not small enough duration, for example 6 months, 12 months, that it raises a red flag at the time of your next hiring. Because if you keep switching your job every 12 months, 6 months, then people are reluctant to hire you because they see you as someone who just comes in and then goes away. So don't be that person who just leaves their job every 6 to 12 months. And also don't be that person who stays in the same company for 10 to 20 years, considering they're loyal to their company. Because at least one thing which we have recently learned from these set of layoffs is that companies, when it comes to them, they do not give any weightage to any loyalty people have expressed towards them. They are totally fine firing a person who has spent 25 years in the same company. So you should also do not get into any kind of a disillusion by when your company says that it's like all family-like culture. It's not. There are no loyalties to it. It is just very much business. So treat it as is. So try to switch your job every 3 to 5 years so that you can get the maximum amount of money, because there are researches which shows that if you stay in the same job, of course your salary will increase, but it will increase much higher if you keep switching your jobs every now and then. And one of the reasons people do not leave their jobs is that it takes a lot of pressure to apply to new jobs and leave your colleagues and move to a totally different new environment. But don't hold that fear back to you from switching jobs. You should definitely try to switch jobs. And the last advice I would give to my younger self is that have fun along the journey. Life is pretty short. If before 20 you don't even know what you're doing, and after 60 you are retired, so it's like 40 years of time, and every year passes by so quickly that you won't even realize. So while you should definitely try to use your early career years when you have that luxury of time available on developing your skill set and credentials and your career, you should also try to maximize the amount of fun you're having while you are at it. So enjoy your time, try to document what your learnings, your fears, your mistakes, your sad moments are. Try to take a lot of photos, do a lot of journaling, write down your notes. What are you thinking? Even in the moment of distress, try to record yourself, even an audio, so that you could refer back to it and you have developed some good memories you could reflect back on, because the life will passes by you much more quickly than you would realize. So keep into mind this, that whatever you're doing is just a very small component of it. Try to emphasize on your health and how you can just enjoy the time with your loved ones, your friends, your family. You do not have as much time as you think you have. This would be my very critical advice to my younger self. So I know I said a lot and this was much longer than my other videos, but I hope that you find the content of this useful. Thank you so much for watching.